Cardinals are set with Kyler Murray. Now the question is, what's ahead for him in year two? His progress from year one to year two, and that's something we talked about with Kurt Warner, the Hall of Famer and Cardinals Ring of Honor member. We had a chance to catch up with Warner in Indianapolis last week ahead of his NFL Network duties. We talked a lot about Murray, but that was not the first topic of our conversation.
So I wanted to ask you, first of all, as a former player, when it comes to the draft, did you pay attention? Because I've heard some players, like Fitz has brought it up, I don't care because it's guys that are coming in to try to take my job. But not that he had to worry about it.
Yeah, I kind of looked at it. I kind of looked at it the opposite. Was that if there was anything I paid attention to, it was my team. Like, where are we getting better? What moves are we making? I think as players, we all have going into it like, hey, can you get me 3 more wide receivers? Or whatever that is. Things that you say, hey, we could really use this, even though you don't get involved in the process. But I would watch definitely my teams, and not necessarily, turn it on from start to finish. But I was always checking in like, okay, who did we get? How are they going to help us? How are they going to fit in? And then I think I naturally watched and wanted to know quarterbacks. Where quarterbacks were going, where they were going to be playing, and that part of things, and then I think the third thing was always, okay, who did teams in my division get? Who am I going to be facing? How is that going to change what we're doing? So, yeah, I paid attention to it, but it wasn't, locked in from start to finish. But, yeah, I think you have to because it's such a big part of where you're going to be and what your team's going to be about.
Okay, then does it surprise you that Kyler Murray is blowing up the phones of both Keim and Kingsbury about CeeDee Lamb, his former Oklahoma teammate?
I don't think it surprises me, no. I think if you have that relationship, and, the other part is that if you've played with a guy, and you have a rapport with a guy, and you know something about him, and obviously, no secret that the Cardinals are obviously in play for a wide receiver. That doesn't surprise me at all. I think I would do the same if I've got a guy that I truly believe in and know could make us better and we're sitting in a good position to get him. Yeah, I think I'd be beating on the table too and going, hey, let me tell you about this guy. Tell me why I think he's special, why he can make us better. So, no, that doesn't surprise me at all.
All right, you played with some Hall of Famers, and I think we're starting to see the fruits of the labor. These guys getting in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. On paper, I don't think the Cardinals have a number one wide receiver. Christian Kirk's flash. We know Larry is getting bracketed more of a slot guy. Whether they take him at 8 or they take in their second or third round. Talk about the importance, because Marty Herney, the GM of the Panthers, always says, I don't care how fast you are, I don't care how tall you are. If you cannot get off press coverage and separation, really it's going to be a long haul for you. Yeah. Your guys, and Marshall Faulk was one of the best dual backs in the league, but talk about you throwing to a spot knowing they're going to be there.
Yeah, it's huge. My son plays wide receiver at University of Nebraska, and that's always what I'm harping on is like, if you can make people miss and get off the line of scrimmage and win that part of things, you can win anywhere. Because, again, the rest of it doesn't matter. If you understand how to run routes and all of that stuff, because most guys are fast enough, right?
Yep.
So it's not about just the speed, but it's about the ability to avoid contact and allow, as you talk about, the timing for a quarterback. That was always, for me, is like, if you get banged halfway through your route, it screws everything up for what I'm reading and when I'm trying to get the ball out and how I'm making my decisions. So that is extremely important. Yeah, if you can put the whole package together, great. But, I just think back to when I was with the Cardinals and you got guys like Larry and Q. And that was what separated them, was that, physically you weren't going to be able to stop them in press coverage. And so they might have the top end speed or they might not run away from you, but they were going to be where they needed to be.
Yep.
And because of their ability to catch the football, we could be successful because I could put the ball away from the defender, and we were good. But, yeah, there is no question in my mind that becomes vital. And that's going to be something interesting with the Cardinals as well. If they go and get a wide receiver, Christian, as you mentioned, is really good. Can he be that guy that, can beat that one-on-one coverage all the time? Or does he have to be the guy, because you can always work around it, right? I can put him in the stack position so that guy doesn't have to win against press coverage, but then I better have somebody that can. And so it becomes that cat and mouse of going, okay, what do we have? What do we believe this guy is? And how does that open us up for a CeeDee Lamb or, a Judy or whoever that is that we like, but you try to find those complementary pieces so you have what you need to be successful within your offense.
All right, with that being said, we know this defense definitely needs help in the front seven, opposite pass rusher and Chandler Jones. They need a difference maker out front. But protecting Kyler Murray also is very important, and he took probably half of those sacks last year, negative plays drifting in the pocket. So you're sitting at 8, and I do think they would go defense if Derek Brown was there. But, Justin Murray is under contract. Marcus Gilbert's a free agent. Sweezy's making $4 million. Even though they stayed healthy last year, it's hard to stay healthy an entire season with the same 5.
Yeah.
So my question is, if you can protect him, how far would that go to opening up lanes for the running game and the wideouts?
Yeah, I think both of them are vital. You can go back and look at playoff teams, Super Bowl teams, whatever. There's always two sides of the coin, and one side is pass rush, right? You have to be able to rush passers in this business because they're getting more athletic. It's a pass-first league now, so you have to be able to do that. But then there's the other side of it is that we always talk about pass first, but the teams that can run the football and win the line of scrimmage on offense are teams that are in the playoffs more times than not. And so I think it really comes down to when you have a pick like the Cardinals have, is you take the best guy. If there's a guy at each position, you take the best guy that you believe can be the biggest impact player for you, because you have the luxury of saying, we don't just have to go this position, we can go either route. But I think it comes down to those types of things. Who can play the longest for us? Who do we think is going to be the most advantageous for us in what we're trying to do? But you're right. That's the other problem, is when you're picking that high, that means you have more than one issue, right? You have numerous issues, and then you have to look down at depth too, because that's kind of a wide receiver question too. Like, gosh, we need help with defensive line. We need help with the offensive line. Yeah, we need a wide receiver, but everybody's talking. There's a bunch of wide receivers here. Do we go and get one at 8 because it's flashy and it sounds good and there's some good players there, or do we get one of those linchpin type guys as an offensive tackle or a defensive lineman that can be a difference maker for us and get that wide receiver down the line a little bit? But those, again, that's why those guys get paid the big bucks, to try to figure all that out and piece all the needs together.
When it comes to Kyler, and we'd like to think that he can follow in the footsteps of Mahomes, Lamar Jackson that second year, what do you see, and what is the next step for him to become that next great quarterback?
Well, I think you saw a lot of good things his first year, and so that's where it all starts, is that there's lots of things to build on. If I'm saying where does he have to make the biggest jump year 2, it's his ability to see and react inside the pocket. He's a great playmaker, and what he does on the run and the special throws that he can make and what he does with his legs, that's going to be there. His ability to see and react on time. What we always say, you got to be able to make layups in this business. I don't care how talented you are. You want to win consistently and you want to beat good teams. You got to be able to make the layups, meaning see the things you're supposed to see, get the ball out on time, and allow those special plays to be 3 or 4 or 5 a game instead of 12 or 13 or 14 a game to be able to be successful. And so that, to me, is where he's got to make the biggest strides in year 2, is get more comfortable inside the pocket within their system to get the ball out on time and make some of those plays.
I know sometimes it's difficult in the offseason, but to be able to sit down with him at some point in a private setting, what would you at least point out? It's more of a conversation, but to have him learn from someone who not only wore the Cardinals uniform, but is a Hall of Famer.
I would welcome that, and hopefully at some point that happens. Obviously, when you come in as the number 1 pick, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in your first year, so hopefully some of that settles down and we can get together. But I think the first thing you always have to do when you're dealing with a quarterback of any sort is you got to get inside their mind. And so when you sit down and talk to them and you watch film and you go, okay, tell me what you were thinking. Tell me what you were seeing. And the whole key to all of it is that quarterback being honest with you. I didn't know what I was seeing, or this is what I was seeing. This is why I went here. Or I saw this guy do this. And that really becomes where it has to all start, is I need to know what you're thinking on a particular play, what your mindset is. If you get a particular coverage, what are you trying to attack? And those types of things, so you start to get a sense of, okay, this is how this guy works. This is how he sees things. This is how he plays the game. And then from there, you're able to branch off and go, okay, here, how can I help you with your mindset to get better? Because quite frankly, I don't know if Kyler Murray's mindset will ever be what my mindset is. I don't know if he'll ever play the game the way I played the game. So you have to be able to try to figure out what are some of the things that I can do or that I did that could help him and show him how to see and think the game a little bit differently to add to what his skill set already is.
Now you look at Baker Mayfield. I mean, a lot of people think there was a lot of distractions, a lot of mouthpieces over there, and he took a step back. So I don't think anyone's anticipating, a sophomore slump. But when will the game slow down for him? Because I listened to Matt Patricia, and he said going against a young guy, we looked at Oklahoma film, we looked at Texas film, we threw everything at him. Mm-hmm. And I think the Cardinals' offense is more efficient with the hurry up where maybe he's not thinking us. But when will the game slow down for him?
There's so many facets to that. There's the maturity process where some guys just have the ability to slow it down, and when that happens in their progression is different for all of us. The other question becomes, how often can you slow it down? A lot of people think that, was a great quarterback for a long time, that every game I played, it was in slow motion. No, there was games I went out there and go like, what's going on? Why can't I slow this game down? And so how often can you do that in the course of the season? And then, there's the part of knowledge. Again, I talk about mindset and I talk about what you're seeing, and that becomes a huge piece to the puzzle, is that if I know exactly what I'm looking at, what I'm supposed to be looking at, it makes the game so much easier. If I'm not sure and I'm dropping back going, okay, what exactly am I seeing here? And I'm trying to see a whole bunch at one time, the game is going to be faster. When I know, I know what they're doing and I know who I'm supposed to be reading, and I get my eyes on that one guy, and the game's simple. And so there's a knowledge factor that goes into it as well, as how much do you know about your offense, about what a defense is doing, about where my eyes should be against this particular coverage on this particular play. And all that goes into the process of, man, if I just have to look at one guy, now the game seems a whole lot slower than me trying to go, okay, what's going on out there and how do I get something done positive? And so there's just a big progression to it all. And the more of all of that stuff you can take in, the sooner you can do it, the more you can do it, the more we talk about the game slowing down, and you can play to all of your strengths. And I think that's the exciting thing, is Kyler wasn't anywhere close to that this year based on what I saw on film. Yet, he still had the season that he had and made the plays that he made, won Rookie of the Year, and all of that stuff. And I sit here and go, he has so much room to grow. That's the exciting part, is will he get there? I don't know. But if he gets closer every year, it's going to be really fun to watch.
How about Cliff Kingsbury's play calling? The first couple of weeks, 4 wide in the red zone, 5 wide at the goal line. Kirk goes down. They run a lot more 11 and 12 personnel. They acquire Drake. How about him adapting on the job, knowing that you can't force it to play an air raid offense in the NFL?
I think all great coaches or coordinators or whatever are guys that have the ability to adjust to what their team can do. And, that was one of the things that you saw, as you just mentioned, is that we all thought he was going to be 4 and 5 wides and we're going to throw it every snap. And that's really what his background was. But then to have the ability in the middle of the season to go, forget that, we're going to be a run-first team, which surprised the heck out of me. I never thought we would see that, the way they were built and what he did. But that became the linchpin to them having success. Is it helps your defense out when you can run the football. It helps your young quarterback. It allows him to play a different brand of football. So I thought he did a great job of adjusting along the way. Areas that I still want to see improvement is the red zone, right? I think a lot of what they did was very college-esque, and we had a lot of screens. We had a lot of things built in that were easy throws for my quarterback, and that's all great. But when you get down inside the red zone, no longer can you expect those plays to become touchdowns, because you're not always going to be more talented than the other guys. So scheming becomes a little bit more important down there, something that I did think they got better at as the year went along, but something that I'm looking for improvement there is, can he get better at understanding what that's like down in the red zone of the NFL and making that easier so they can get touchdowns instead of field goals.
Last question. You were kind enough to give us your time. Now take this time. It's become an annual event now at the facility,
right?
The Kurt Warner Flag Football Tournament.
Yeah, the ultimate football experience, where we bring in corporate teams to really have a competitive flag football event there at the facility, which is awesome. So we take over the locker room. Guys walk in. They've got jerseys with their names on them and lockers that we take over. We get out on the fields, and then we invite NFL former and current players to come in and be their all-time quarterback. And it really is a fun, one-of-a-kind event. As you said, we've done it for like 19 years now in the different places that I've been, and I look forward to it every year. I love having different guys come in. This year, Kyler is going to be one of the quarterbacks. Derek Carr is going to be in. Ryan Finley, a local product, which is another thing that I love, is young guys from that area that are making good for themselves. Ryan ended up starting some games for Cincinnati. Fitz will be back. Fitz calls me just about every year. He's like, "When's your event? I want to be there," because he enjoys being it as a wide receiver. He doesn't get to throw the ball that much. We saw a couple years ago when he threw that touchdown pass. I told him it was because he plays in my event every year, but he's going to come out again, and so it's a fun time, and it's a great way for us to raise money and exposure for what we're doing. But we love that the Cardinals every year support it and come out, and we're excited about having some of those guys this year.
Now, I've told you that the rumors are if Kurt invites you over to his house to pick up basketball, you better make sure you bring your A game because you're not going to get the invite. Now, I don't know how many times his teams win the championship. Sometimes they think it's stacked, but they do have a draft. But you want to see Mr. Competitive again? Go out there and watch him throw the ball around.
Well, I think that's one of the things that the corporate sponsors love so much is I think they know we're all competitors, but I don't think they realize it. Like, you go out here and you don't know who you're going to be playing with. I mean, all different ages, shapes, and sizes. But it doesn't matter. When these guys get a ball in their hands, they want to compete and they want to win. And I think some of the people that are playing are a little intimidated by that, but I think that's part of the war stories. Man, I was playing with, so-and-so, and, man, he's yelling at me, and he's screaming at me, and he's telling me to do this, and you got to catch it, and they get to go home and they have these stories because –
forever.
Yeah, and that's what makes these guys great is they compete. They want to compete. Anytime you put them in a situation where it's competitive, they want to win, and it makes it fun no matter what position, no matter who's in. We all want to go out there and compete and show that we belong.
Kurt, it's always a pleasure. Appreciate it, and looking forward to the coverage on the NFL Network as well.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, guys.